8 days ago, The Economist YouTube channel brought out a very interesting topic called, Is it worth having kids? Now, of course, I had to check this out. I'm a big fan of The Economist YouTube channel. So, of course, you knowing me, I pressed play.
Do you want to have kids? If so, when and how many? It's a big decision. They may be small bundles of joy, but they can cost a fortune. As people weigh up the pros and cons of procreating, fewer children are being born, especially in the rich world. And in the long term, this could mean fewer young workers to support the elderly. So, is it worth having kids? And kids can be costly. The costs start even before birth. Fertility treatment, for those who need it, is expensive. And in some countries, giving birth in a hospital can cost thousands of dollars. Then there's food, clothes, nappies, toys, baby carriers, and prams. The Economist has calculated that a typical American family can expect to spend almost $300,000 raising a child to the age of 17. Factor in college tuition, and it rises to over $400,000.
Now, after looking at the beginning of the video, I looked at some other statistics because, hey, most men in the Western world, if you have kids, there is a price that is going to be accounted for, right? And the price that you're going to see if you're raising a child to the age of 17 in 2022 is the whopping $286,717. Now, if you include raising a child with college tuition, $413,809. It's a lot of money. I mean, just think if you were to have $286,000 inside of a index fund or, let's say in certain stocks or bonds, that money could do a whole lot for you as a single man. But the question is it worth having kids? Now, let me just say this. The United States is a first world country. And for many men, being in the first world country, it's a privilege in some ways. There's access to better healthcare, access to better education and infrastructure. The downside is that, as you know, kids cost a lot of money. And also, there's one thing called divorce. Now, let me talk about this because typically kids are associated or closely related to marriage. Now, most people, when they want to have kids, not in America in general because it's declining, but there is a concept of, let me get married first, right? Now, if you want to get married, then having a wife costs a lot of money. Having a wedding costs a lot of money. And that concept called a starter home is no longer valid unless you live in the Midwest, maybe Cleveland, parts of Ohio, Detroit. And those are cities that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people don't like living in the Midwest. I have nothing against the Midwest, but people just don't like the Midwest. That's why the Midwest is typically cheaper than the East Coast or the West Coast. So it also depends on what city you're going to be in. And if you're in a city like Oakland or San Francisco, a starter home doesn't exist. Your median home price is, $1 million and up. Sacramento, where I'm from, no such thing as a starter home. Even in the hood now, like in Del Paso Heights, my mom in 1989 and my dad bought a house for $60,000. That house now in the hood is worth $350,000. The same amount of money it costs damn near to raise one child. The question is, for many men, is it worth having kids in America? Now, let's think about if you have a child, the investment that you need to have in the child itself. Children take a lot of nurturing, a lot of time, but what happens if you and your wife break up? I think this is the question that most men are going to ask. All right, in the system of America, if me and my wife break up and I'm not married to her, or my girlfriend break up, what do I have control of? Well, now the state gets involved. So the state can say, you don't have visitation rights, or you do have visitation rights, right? And let me just say this. Now, that figure of $286,000 and $413,000, however you look at it, it could be split down the middle by two parents, But typically, if you're a higher earning person, you'll be looking more or less to spend most of that money. And then you could be spending a lot of money on child support without ever having access to the child. And then this is the most scary thing. What if you're raising a child and you find out that the child is not yours? Yeah, it's called paternity fraud, but we know a lot of men experience paternity fraud in the United States. And I really believe that many men in America want families. Many men would like to have long-term marriages, but the reality is that children are often weaponized against men in the United States. Like, didn't we just see what happened with Christian Rock in Blueface, guys? Like little situations like that where a woman can tell you, you know what, when I have this baby, I'm not gonna let you see this kid anymore. Yeah, when that stuff happens, it's like, wait a minute, I'm still paying child support, I'm still paying for this stuff, but you won't let me see my kid because we're not together anymore, or we're not in a relationship anymore. Having a kid can break you, right? It can really make you poor in America or any first world country. So what a lot of guys are looking at, just like my last video I did about men being in relationships, you know, men are looking at kids as like, well, this kid doesn't do anything for my financial benefit. Just like a lot of guys are looking at women in the same way in America. Like, okay, if I marry her, what do I get out of the table? I'm taking care of her, I'm spending my money, and if she leaves and goes on to the next guy, all she's gonna do is take all of my equipment or all of my stuff or all of my houses or all of my whatever, and then I lose everything and she goes on to the next guy who won't give her anything. That's kind of how guys are looking at kids. And people are gonna pick themselves over somebody that doesn't exist. Like, for an example, if I had a child that was here today in the world, obviously that child would be, you know, top priority in my life. I would adjust my life to this child, but that child is not here, right? So can I adjust my life to something that doesn't exist? So guys are like, look, let me get a vasectomy, let me wear condoms, let me do everything I can in my power not to get a child that I feel like, you know, I won't be able to take care of or I can't take care of. And we got to understand that while America is a great country, financial uncertainty is for sure. How much money do you have to have a child? How much money do you have to have a wife? Like, all of these things, it takes a whole lot, guys, to really plan these things out. And I'll be honest, planning things out is not easy, especially for men, because the one thing that's true about men, nobody helps you. There's no, you know, fall, there's no nothing. Nobody gives a damn about you. And you got to produce, you got to take care of yourself. Also, there's a whole thing about retirement. We all know that a lot of Americans don't have pensions, or not pensions, but they don't save enough money to retire on. It's a big problem in America. They're always threatening that Social Security will one day be gone. How much money do you have to live when you're in your 60s or 70s? And once you get through spending all that money for your child, I hate to say it, but there's not any money left over for you, right? So if you're going to live a long life, you need to make sure that you have enough money to take care of yourself. And sometimes having a child or multiple children can definitely affect the rest of your adult life, because typically your kids don't give you money when you get older. Not in America, they don't. Maybe in Africa somewhere, or India somewhere, kids take care of their families. In America, it's like, look, thanks dad, thanks mom, gotta go, right? And nobody wants to be a burden to their kids when they get older. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of Let's Celebrity Junk. Appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.